All right, so when you have a condensing hive, it's important to come and clean out the dead bees and ice on a regular basis. Today's 22 degrees, and the sun's been hitting the front of the hives for 2 hours or so, and a lot of the ice and snow built up has started to melt. You look around at the hives and you can see that I miscalculated the sun angle a little bit, and so those 3 hives back there never get sun on the landing board for at least the bulk of the day during the winter, and so those landing boards will have snow remaining on them, and ice builds up, and it's important to clean those out. You probably can also see that my hives are tipped forward quite a bit. It's basically, if you have the hives at level, you will put a 1 inch to 1.5 inch board at the back side. That's basically the equivalent of how much my hives are tipped to get drainage. Anything less than that, and it's the snow and the ice and all that stuff tends to pool. So I just opened up this hive to clean out the entrance. I just want to show you that I just cleaned out previously, and that one also. That's about how many bees I expect after a week or so. They will have slightly larger die-offs periodically when the weather changes drastically, if we get a really big cold snap. But I think some of it is also just naturally the bees die off in bunches the same way that they hatch, and do orientation flights periodically. But my entrance reducers, you can see I only run a very small entrance. The notch on the top is kind of like a little bit of a backup, and that's also how I do oxalic acid vaporization. The little grooves do allow for some drainage. I just hit those, touched them on a bandsaw to make some grooves to help with drainage. It does help because you can see even on a cold day when the sun is coming out, you will get a lot of this melting that occurs, and that's the condensation that is built up on the front of the hive or the bottoms. It's kind of snow. Condensation, it's kind of snow on the inside or ice, and then you have cold nights. The next sunny day, it warms up around the entrance, it warms up in the bottom, and then some of that snow and ice starts to melt, and then you see all the dead bees. But you can see there's a little lip of ice right in the front here. And that's all starting to melt and loosen up, and that allows me to scrape out all the dead bees. And so I will use like a longer stick occasionally and get some of the bees in the back, because they do, the bees are wanting to get rid of them, so they'll pile them up along the front, and then that kind of builds off to the sides and the corners, or they'll start falling naturally as they die out of the cluster and they fall off the cluster. They'll just be kind of scattered around the whole bottom. But those dead bees, during long cold stretches of cold, will retain a lot of moisture, and then eventually that freeze thaw cycle, if you get it, you don't have a sunny day for a while, it blocks up the entrance. If the entrance gets blocked up, like I said, it's not actually that big of a deal. I've had this is my 6th winter. Started out with just 2 hives, and then that quickly became a dozen, and then 20 hives, and I've never lost a colony over winter. And there's been times where their entrances are blocked with ice like this, for a week at a time, and it really doesn't make doesn't kill off the hive, from suffocation or anything like that. I have no upper entrances. Everything is propolized and sealed, and yeah, there's no candy boards, no winter moisture absorbers of any kind. I just run Reflectix on the top of the hive, and that seals straight down to the top bars of the upper hive or the upper box, and there's no ventilation at all. And then I add typically about an inch to an inch and a half of rigid foam. I've been playing around to see what the, what's the minimum or whatever. But, and then I've been trying different methods of insulation and wrapping the hives. See how much I actually need. Again, this is after several years, and I've tried a bunch of different things, and just haven't had the luxury of doing it in a scientific method where I have control groups and I let some bees die and things like that to find out what actually works. And so it doesn't need to be perfect, but some insulation, especially on top, is better than none. And condensing hives with no ventilation, tipped forward, and then a little periodic maintenance, just to make sure that that entrance stays open, definitely helps. Where I do have it wrapped a little bit more perfectly, these have like a hive cozy around them, and then the insulation goes all the way down. It's equal all the way around rather than less insulation on the front, for solar gain and some of that melting effect, which I'm, again, kind of playing around with to, where I have the sides insulated better and the back and the top, and then, leave the fronts somewhat uninsulated. That means that the front is the coldest surface, and then more of the condensation will happen in the front because that's my drainage point, and that's what I was hoping for. But that also creates problems because the entrance is also wet when it does happen. And so I'm working with standard equipment, but ultimately I think I will probably create a whole new set of bottom boards with drainage at the back, and then instead tip all of my hives back, and then have a removable, piece in the back as well. But that way, the south-facing entrance where the bees want to go in and out for cleansing flights and all that stuff is the highest point, and then there will be no more snow and ice pooling and issues with access or ventilation and that sort of thing. The front will always stay clear, and then all of the condensation and the drainage will happen at the back of the hive, where you can kind of clean it out easier. So that's just basically what I'm doing, working with standard equipment. But eventually I think I'm going to build a better bottom board, and then I think I'm going to make it out of composite decking, so I don't have any rot issues, because obviously you've seen that when you're cleaning out the front in a condensing hive, there's definitely a lot of moisture or dampness that persists along that front edge and the bottom. I do have a lot of my bottom boards I made myself, and some of them are plywood, and some delaminate and warp and that sort of thing, which also screws up your drainage. So anyways, that's I just kind of wanted to show what I do for cleaning out the fronts every week or so. A lot of people get worried this time of year because they see a bunch of dead bees out in the snow, and I wanted to kind of show that dead bees happen all the time. You just never notice it until you have this nice white background, where you notice every single dead bee that's coming out of the hive. So bees die off every week, and if they go out on a cleansing flights and it happens to be a little bit too cold out, they freeze in the air and just drop onto the snow. And so when you have a nice sheltered location and a nice calm a nice calm 20-degree day, when it's sunny like this, the bees are more likely to come out and give it a shot and see if they can go on cleansing flights. And when their buddies don't come back, then they realize it's a little too cold. And but you will have bees that fly out and die in the snow all winter long. They might be removing themselves so they don't die in the hive. They might have been a little bit more ambitious and thought it was warmer than it was, because you have a good sheltered location with a little extra sun and that sort of thing, and so they feel a little bit warmer. But bees die every week, and they often die in the first 20 feet in front of the hive, coming or going. And I actually have run rolls of carpet in front of my hives, actually just to even monitor, what kind of rate what colonies are having more die-offs, or whether they're getting robbed out and that sort of thing. And you'd be amazed if you have a light tan or white carpet rolled out in front of your hives, all year round, you will have dead bees. And it looks a lot like it does in winter. And so these bees couldn't get out. They died in the hive. They just dropped to the ground, and the undertaker bees kind of pushed them aside, or they're waiting for the next really nice warm day, 40-degree day, to get rid of that and clean it all out. But as a beekeeper, we can help out a little bit and make it easier on them, and have a better chance of success by cleaning out the excess moisture and the excess dead bees every week or so. All right, thanks.